Welcome to my channel. Have you ever met a clock that didn't tick until you answered its question? What if I told you that a clock can teach you English, make you think, and help you understand something important about life? This is not a magic story. It's a simple story, but there's something strange, something that will make you want to listen till the end. Stay with me. You might just find your own clock waiting for your answer. Chapter 1. The Strange Gift. Ravi was not expecting anything. It was his birthday, but he didn't tell anyone. He didn't plan a party. He didn't want cake. He just wanted the day to go away. But then, something strange happened. The postman came. He gave Ravi a small package. It was from his uncle, the quiet uncle who lived far away in the mountains. Ravi hadn't seen him in many years. The box was light. Inside, there was a wooden clock. It looked old, but not broken. It had no numbers, only a smooth, round face with a small golden hand. But there was something strange. The clock didn't tick. It didn't move. It didn't make any sound. Nothing. Ravi thought, maybe it's just for decoration. He put it on the table near his bed. That night, something happened. When Ravi came back from brushing his teeth, he saw something on the clock. It was not there before. There were words. They were not written with a pen. They just appeared on the clock face. Slowly, like a screen. It said, "I will wait for your answer." Ravi stared at it. "What answer?" he said out loud. But the clock stayed silent. The words did not change. Just 5 words. "I will wait for your answer." Now, Ravi felt nervous. Was it a joke? Maybe someone put a machine inside. He touched the clock. It was warm. Not hot, just warm, like a hand. But there were no buttons, no battery, no screen, just wood. He went to sleep, but he couldn't sleep well. The words stayed in his head. "I will wait for your answer." What answer? In the morning, the clock still didn't tick. No sound, no movement, only the same words. Ravi picked it up. He spoke into it, like a phone. "Hello? What do you mean?" But the clock didn't answer. He asked more questions. "Who are you? What answer do you want? Is this a game?" Still, nothing changed. The same words. Still no tick. That's when Ravi remembered something. A moment, 1 week ago, his uncle had called him. It was a short call. The uncle only asked one thing. "What do you want to do in life?" Ravi didn't answer. He was busy. He said, "I don't know," and ended the call. Now, the clock was here. And maybe it was waiting for that answer. Chapter 2. The question that was never asked. Ravi sat at his desk and looked at the clock. It was still quiet. It still didn't move. Only the same words. "I will wait for your answer." He wanted to laugh, but he couldn't. It didn't feel like a joke anymore. It felt serious. He asked again, "What answer?" The clock didn't change. He tried something else. He said, "What is your question?" Still, nothing. He touched the clock. It was still warm, not like a machine. It felt more like skin, like something alive, but it was just a clock. A strange, silent clock. He left it on the table and went outside. It was a normal day. The sun was hot. Children played in the street. A man was selling fruit. People laughed. Life went on. But Ravi kept thinking about the clock. He thought about his uncle. He remembered the phone call again. Just one question. "What do you want to do in life?" That's all his uncle said. Nothing more. At that time, Ravi didn't answer. He said, "I don't know," and changed the subject. He was in a hurry. He didn't want to think about life. He was tired. He thought, "I will answer later." But now maybe it was too late. Now maybe the clock was waiting. Ravi came home. He looked at the clock again. He sat in front of it and said, "Okay, if this is about my uncle's question, I'll try." But he didn't know what to say. He thought, should I say I want to be a doctor, a teacher, an actor? None of those words felt true. He didn't feel sure. He tried to speak, but no words came out. And still, the clock said nothing. No tick, no sound. That night, Ravi couldn't sleep. He kept looking at the clock. In the dark, it glowed a little. It felt like it was watching him, not with eyes, but with time. He asked himself, why is this so hard? And then he thought maybe he had never really answered this question in his life. Maybe nobody had ever really asked him, what do you want? Not what your family wants, not what school wants, not what the world wants, just what you want. And now, the clock, maybe it was the first thing in his life that truly waited for his answer. Chapter 3. Time starts with a word. The next day, Ravi sat in front of the clock again. He had not slept well. The question from his uncle was still in his mind. He thought, why is it so difficult to answer? It wasn't that he didn't have dreams. He just didn't know where to begin. Every time he thought of something, it felt like the wrong thing to say. He wasn't sure. Maybe he was too young to know what he really wanted. Maybe he had no answer at all. But then something changed. Ravi looked at the clock. Its face was glowing softly, just like the night before. He noticed something strange. The golden hand on the clock was slightly moving. It was so small, so quiet, but it moved. The clock wasn't broken. Ravi hesitated. He looked at the words again. I will wait for your answer. Okay, Ravi said aloud. I'll try. He took a deep breath. He didn't know what to say at first. Then, suddenly, the words came. Not big words, not complicated words, just simple words. I want to help people. And then, to Ravi's surprise, the clock ticked. It was a soft sound. A little tick, just one, but it was enough. Ravi looked at the clock in shock. I want to help people, he whispered again. And again the clock ticked. Ravi felt something in his heart. It was a feeling he had never had before, a feeling like he had told the truth. It wasn't just words, it was his truth. The clock was waiting for that, waiting for him to speak what he really felt. And then he realized something. The clock wasn't just waiting for any answer. It wasn't waiting for a perfect answer. It was waiting for his answer, the real one, the true one. He smiled. He had found his first answer. It wasn't big. It wasn't special. It was just a simple thought, spoken out loud. But it was enough. The clock had listened. The clock had moved. And for the first time in days, Ravi felt something different. He felt like he could speak again. He didn't have to be perfect. He didn't have to say the right thing all the time. He just had to say something real. He tried again. I want to learn. The clock ticked again. And with every word, Ravi felt a little lighter, a little more confident. Each time the clock ticked, he knew something important was happening. Maybe it wasn't magic, but it felt like magic. The clock wasn't just teaching him about time, it was teaching him about himself. And maybe, just maybe, it was teaching him about English too. Because speaking English, Ravi realized, wasn't about knowing everything. It was about starting. Chapter 4. Mistakes make the clock stop. Ravi sat at his desk the next morning looking at the clock. He was feeling good. He had started to understand something important. Speaking from the heart, saying what he really meant, made the clock tick. And when it ticked, he felt like something inside of him was growing, like he was getting stronger. more confident. He decided to try again. This time, he wanted to say something bigger, something important, something that would make the clock tick loudly, like a real answer. I want to be rich, Ravi said aloud, but nothing happened. The clock didn't tick. It didn't move. It didn't even glow. It was silent, dead silent. Ravi stared at the clock. He tried again, louder this time. I want to be famous. Still nothing. No tick. No movement. Ravi's heart sank. What was wrong? He thought those were good answers. Everyone wants to be rich, right? Everyone wants to be famous. What was wrong with his answer? He asked the clock, why aren't you ticking? Why are you quiet? For a moment, the clock still didn't move. But then, slowly, the words appeared on the clock's face. They were different this time. They weren't the same as before. They said, you are not being honest. Ravi felt a little cold inside. He didn't want to believe it, but he knew the truth. He had lied. It wasn't that he didn't want money or fame, of course. Everyone dreams of that. But deep down, he knew that was not his true answer. It wasn't the answer the clock was waiting for. He thought about it. He had said rich and famous because those were the answers people expect. Those are the things everyone says when they talk about success. But they weren't the things that mattered to him. They weren't the things that made him feel alive. So Ravi sat quietly. He thought for a long time. Then, slowly, he spoke again. This time softer, more honest. I want to be kind. The clock ticked. Ravi smiled. The tick wasn't loud, but it was there. He knew that was the real answer. But the clock wasn't done teaching him yet. He tried one more time, this time thinking carefully. I want to learn. Another tick. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't about saying the right words. It was about saying what felt true. And Ravi realized something else too. The clock was teaching him that mistakes were part of the process. Even when you say something wrong, it's still a step forward. The clock had not ticked for his rich answer because it wasn't honest. But it didn't mean he had failed. It just meant he had to try again. And that was okay. Ravi wasn't angry. He didn't feel sad. He felt something different, something new. He felt free. Free to make mistakes, to try again, to learn. The clock had stopped him, but in the end, it wasn't the mistake that mattered. It was what he learned from it. Chapter 5. Speaking changes everything. Days passed, and Ravi's confidence grew. He wasn't worried about making mistakes anymore. Every time the clock ticked, he knew he was learning something important. Speaking from the heart made him feel stronger, more connected to the world around him. One evening, he decided to speak even more. He wasn't just going to talk to the clock, he was going to talk to people. He started small. He said to his mother, I'm hungry. Simple. But it felt good to speak honestly without overthinking. And his mother smiled and gave him food. Then he spoke to his sister. I'm tired. I need a break. His sister didn't laugh or tease him. She nodded, understanding. Ravi was surprised. He thought people would judge him, but they didn't. They listened. And each time he spoke, each time he used simple, honest words, something inside him grew stronger. He felt his English improving. He was no longer afraid to speak. The words didn't have to be perfect. They just had to be real. One day, Ravi was walking in the park, and he saw an old woman sitting alone on a bench. He had never spoken to her before, but something inside him told him to try. He walked up to her and said, Hello, how are you? She looked up at him, surprised. Oh, hello, I'm fine, thank you. And you? I'm good, Ravi said. It felt easy. It felt natural. They started talking. She asked about his school. He asked about her life. The conversation was simple, but it was real. Ravi realized something important. Speaking English didn't have to be difficult. It wasn't about using fancy words or long sentences. It was about connecting with others, about sharing something true, no matter how small. And it wasn't just about speaking with others. Ravi started writing too. He kept a journal, writing down his thoughts every day. He didn't worry about mistakes. He wrote because it helped him understand himself. It helped him see what was important to him. And as he wrote, his English improved too. His sentences became clearer, his ideas more complete. The more he spoke, the more he understood not just English, but himself. One evening, Ravi sat down again in front of the clock. He hadn't asked it anything for days, but now he was ready. He looked at the words on the clock's face. "I will wait for your answer." Ravi smiled. He knew the answer now. He had been answering all along with every word, with every sentence. His language was growing, his life was growing. And the clock, well, it had taught him more than he ever expected. He said, "I want to speak freely." And this time, when the clock ticked, Ravi felt something deep inside. He had found his voice, and it felt wonderful. Chapter 6. The Final Tick. A year passed since Ravi first received the clock. He had changed in many ways. His English was better, of course, but more than that, he had learned to speak his truth. Every day, Ravi woke up and spoke honestly. He didn't worry about making mistakes anymore. He knew that each word, each sentence, no matter how small, brought him closer to the person he wanted to become. But there was something Ravi hadn't expected. One afternoon, he received a letter. It was from his uncle, the same uncle who had sent him the clock all those months ago. Ravi opened it slowly, wondering what it could be. His uncle had always been quiet, always distant. It had been years since they had last spoken. The letter was short. It read, "Dear Ravi, I know you have been thinking a lot. The clock was never broken. It was never meant to work the way you think. It was only waiting for you to start. You have already answered the question. Now, you must live it. Your uncle." Ravi stared at the letter. His eyes filled with tears. The words were simple, but they hit him deeply. The clock wasn't just a gift. It wasn't just a mystery. It had been a lesson, a challenge, and a guide. He looked at the clock sitting quietly on his desk. It hadn't moved in months. It hadn't ticked. But today, something felt different. Ravi walked over to it, his heart racing a little. He spoke softly, almost as if the clock could hear him. "I understand now. Thank you." And then, just as he finished speaking, the clock ticked. Once, slowly, deeply, a long, clear tick. Ravi felt something in his chest, something he couldn't explain. The clock had waited all this time for him to speak his truth, and now it was done. The answer had been given. The clock had done its job. Ravi sat back in his chair and smiled. He knew his journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. But he also knew something else. The clock had taught him more than just how to speak English. It had taught him how to live. As he thought about his uncle's words, Ravi realized he had found his own answer. He didn't need a clock to tell him what to do. He had the courage to speak. He had the courage to live his truth. Ravi stood up and walked to the window. The sun was setting. He felt calm. He felt free. And for the first time, he felt truly alive. So, what about you? What is your answer? What truth are you ready to speak? Don't be afraid to start, even with simple words. Remember, every word you say brings you closer to the person you want to become. If this story helped you, please give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. We are all learners, and every answer we speak takes us one step closer to who we want to be. Thanks for watching. Speak your truth, keep learning, and remember, your clock is waiting for your answer.